Hello, bonsoir. Bonsoir Twitter, bonsoir Facebook, bonsoir YouTube. Salut tout le monde qui est branché. Bonsoir encore une fois. Non, moi c'est Marjorie Kola. Moi c'est CEO and founder of Colas Leadership Development, LLC, and also content creator for this platform. Welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Potential. Bienvenue sur Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Bonsoir, bien content que nous là avec moi encore jeudi pour une autre émission de Unleash Your Potential. Topic jeudi. How do you overcome barriers and succeed? Qui genre pour gérer difficultés et continuer pour avancer dans la vie? When we hear about barriers, we may have different type of definitions for them. Some may call it challenges, some may call it obstacles, some may call it barriers. Whatever it is that you call it, a barrier is something that prevents you from moving forward from where you started. If I can take a quick example, let's say, for instance, you are a business owner, you have your business, and suddenly coronavirus happened, right? Where everything stopped, you are not able to continue your business. Or if you are continuing your business, you have to look at a different way to sell your product or to offer your product to the public. That's a major barrier. That's a big setback. As you can see, some companies were able to continue their business based on what type of product or service they were offering. If you are in the hospitality industry, the tourism industry, the entertainment industry, this barrier was a lot more difficult to manage because those companies literally had to stop. They couldn't move forward right away. They had to go through and think about it. And during that time, a lot of people lost their jobs. Some people are still on furlough. That's a major barrier that impacted their business. Son setback qui vraiment take business qui cause un pile problème, un pile d'éléments pour yo, right? However, if you are a grocery store, if you're in the business of selling food, if you are an Amazon who sells product, this barrier impacted them, but it impacted them at a different level. If anything, the challenge that the coronavirus barrier affected those business with was a demand. There was a surplus in demand. So there were a lot more demand for food. So Amazon had to go and hire hundreds of drivers to help them to deliver their packages because we rely on Amazon to deliver the support for us. So it depends on who you are. Barriers can have different impact on you and on your business. So I always want to take examples that my audience can relate to. Let's say, for instance, you are one of those people who worked for the hospitality industry. If you work for a hotel, if you work for the cruise line, basically you're probably still at home, not having a job yet. So this barrier or this setback, we call it an external setback. It is an external setback because it's something that happened that you personally over. You had no control. There is no control. Nothing you could have personally done to really help you get ready for this virus that impacted us. So it's an external impact. So once you get hit with an external impact, you then have to really analyze and try to understand how do you move forward in a way that will first support you and of course support your family. So when you hear the word setback or the word barrier, the first thing is to identify what type of barriers are we talking about, right? So there are multiple types of barriers. It could be a communication barrier. It could be a listening barrier. It could be a major disaster barrier. It could be a school issue barrier. So currently, for those of you, if you have kids, if you're a parent, you have kids going to school, but they're going to school online. Well, today I did not broadcast at 2 p.m. because I had a barrier, a setback. And the setback was my son is doing school from home. And when it was time to leave him, he told me, Mommy, I need your help. You cannot leave me because this is not going the right way. And I felt bad. I said, I'm sorry, honey, I'm going to stay with you. So I pushed my life from 2 to 3 p.m. That's an external barrier that impacted me because I was planning on being with you all at 2 p.m. So now what I said to myself is, I already know what the setback is. Instead of doing a 2 p.m. live during school time, right? I'm going to have to push my lives to 3 p.m. because at 3 p.m. he's done with school. So I am able to not only identify my barrier, but I am also able to take quick actions, right, to help me so I can be there for my son and also be there for you all. So that's an example of a barrier. So the first thing in managing or overcoming a barrier or a setback is to first identify what type of barrier are we talking about. When we are identifying the barrier, there are a few things that must be done. You have to be honest with yourself that the moment you are able to identify your barrier, you are going to be addressing the issue at hand if you have the possibility of doing. We talked about the internal and the external type. An internal barrier is a barrier that we possibly are imposing on ourselves. So, an internal barrier can be anything like procrastinating. If you have a plan, if you have a deadline, if you have a schedule to do something and we don't do it on time, we are causing our own barriers because we are procrastinating. So it's a lack of scheduling, it's a lack of planning, it's a lack of discipline that causes this particular barrier. So it is not something that is hard to do because once it's internal, you control it, you can quickly manage and resolve that barrier. Another another internal barrier could very well be, excuse me, I'm looking at my note here quickly. Another type of internal barrier could very well be financial responsibility. That's a barrier that is could be both internal and external. The internal part is when we are not able to properly manage our financials, when we don't have enough discipline to create a budget for ourselves, where we know how much we are going to be spending and how much we are going to be saving. So the lack of responsibility and managing of financials could definitely be a big breakdown. So, le moun pa konen ki jan pou li manage finance li bien, sa son barrière ou bien yon kontraryete personnel, internal, que nous créons, nous capables de gérer bien. Right? Ça, c'est un exemple de type de barrière qui est internal. C'est nous-mêmes qui sommes responsables pour lui. Yon lot type de barrière que nous capables de créer peut-être nous tout, c'est le nous pas attendre ou bien le nous pas arrêter sous yon horaire, yon schedule que nous créé peut-être nous. Si vous dites demain si je veux, ou bien un appointment docteur, faut qu'on aller pour aller dans l'appointtement docteur là. Si nous fait négligence, nous pas aller, OK? Ça c'est une barrière que nous créons peut-être pas nous à cause que nous pas gain discipline suffisamment pour nous faire ça. Son bagage qu'on capable gérer rapidement pour aider gérer genre de setback ça, genre de difficulté ça. Il y a un autre exemple encore que moi vais utiliser parce que je pense qu'il est très bon pour nous. On a parlé de barrière internal, il y a une barrière que nous-mêmes nous créons, capable bien pour être avec distraction. Distractions is probably one of the most impactful setbacks that we create for ourselves because when you are easily distracted, you have the ability to do more, but our lack of focus allow us to be distracted and therefore can cause a delay in the way we do things. So, distraction, c'est une setback que nous créons peut-être nous en pile, parce que l'homme qui fait n'importe quoi, il fait les détourner de ça que tu faire, il vient arriver dans un point côté que il n'est pas capable de continuer avec le projet, tout simplement parce qu'il n'a pas de discipliné suffisamment pour lui capable continuer à l'heure ou bien après dans sa l'affaire. So ça c'est le genre de type de barrière qui gagne qui est capable de cause non fait retard dans un projet ou bien dans une activité que nous menée. Je vais prendre deux exemples. Je prends deux types d'exemples. One of the example is for business owners and the other one is for people who currently don't own a business, possibly professionals who are working. The reason why I do that, in my coaching programs, I coach both business owners and I also coach professionals who are going to school, who are working for a company, but they still need that type of leadership guidance to help them. So the first example is, let's say, right, you are a business owner, you have a restaurant, and you got impacted by this unfortunate virus. Currently, you have to change the way you do business. You have to change how many people you can fit in your restaurant. If you used to serve, let's say, 50 people at a time, now because of social distancing or physical distancing, you have to serve only 20 or only 30, half of that. How are you going to manage that setback? It's a barrier. You have two options. You can say, let me think about this. Let's see how we can change this particular situation by bringing a team forward, talk about the situation, see the step that you need to take. You identify the issue, you identify the solutions, and now you have to implement steps to solve that particular barrier. So you already know you will no longer be able to serve 50 people, but you'll be able to serve 20. How are you going to set the chairs in the restaurant so you can get people away from each other to follow the social distancing? Okay, that's one step. The second option you have, you may say, you know what, this is too much trouble for me. I'm not going to be doing anything. I'm just going to let it go and I close my restaurant. I don't think that a true businessman or a true businesswoman would want to take option two to just give up. No. When you are looking to succeed in life, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, you will always face barriers. The truth to succeeding is to face your challenge, face your setback, identify the issue, implement solutions to help you. And there are times when you are not able to do it by yourself, you have to seek help. So if you are in a situation where you need help, you cannot give up, you have to seek help. So that's the first example. We took our first example. The second example is if you are someone, if you are a parent, you have kids, the virus hit, school are reopening now, but you have options. You either homeschool your kids, where you do from home, but they are doing online schooling, or you send your kids in person to school. So for many of us, like myself, I chose to keep my son home with me. So our options are, we have to either face the challenges that we will be facing daily with technology issues, with students not focusing issues, all of the different type of issues that we will be facing, or we give up. When it comes to education, you don't have an option to give up. So we have to face that barrier heads on and move forward. As I always have questions for you, okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. My questions are, how do you manage challenges? How do you manage challenges? Qui jan ou gérer contrariété? Okay? Qui jan ou gérer contrariété? If you wish to comment, please, I love when people interact and engage. Please, if you have questions as well, please send your questions. I want to remind you that this is for everyone. I love when people take part by sending questions or answering the questions that I pose daily. So the questions for today are: how do you manage challenges? Creole, qui jan ou gérer contrariété? When you are faced with a situation, how do you manage that? How do you deal with that? Here are a few steps that I will be sharing with you that will help you to overcome barriers. The first step, after you identify the barrier, the challenge, the issue, you have to change your routine or your habit. Après, au fin d'identifier contrariété, bien difficulté, premier step là, c'est pour identifier qui ça qui cause contrariété. Et après, au fin d'identifier qui ça qui cause contrariété, ou doit automatiquement prendre décision qui peut aider changer façon que ou servir pour capable pas refaire même erreur encore ou bien pour même problème non pas arriver. So the first step is to how do you change your current routine or your current habits? Step 2 is to implement tactics to accommodate your situation. Faut qu'on implémenter remède ou bien solution qui peut aller do gérer contrariété. Ça me dit par là. So réaliser que machine prend panne, OK? Et ça qui fait le prend panne, c'est parce que les ont une pièce qui casse la donne ou bien ils ont besoin oil change, ils ont besoin de tourner, ils ont bagage que besoin. Pour capable gérer contrariété ça automatiquement ou pas aller make sure qu'on fait oil change de machine ou changer l'huile ou faire tout service pour besoin pour capable de premièrement résoudre contrariété et puis de tout pour pas quitter même contrariété en niveau ou prendre soin de situation. So c'est même genre tout si c'est non business ou bon business something bad happened that stop you, you have to first identify what happened to try your best to fix the problem. And a lot of time when we are fixing the issue, we may need somebody else's help. If you need to see a mechanic, you take your car to a shop. If you need to see a business consultant for your business advice, you seek or hire a business consultant. If you need help to help your kids who are in school, you find a tutor. So whatever the barrier is, you have to identify it and seek for the help with those who are able to help you. Donc, il identifier contrariété, ou chercher solution, et plutôt, ou chercher monde qui est capable de résoudre situation. The next step is to have a drive to move forward. Point qui est important que je voulais faire avec topic aujourd'hui, the most important point that I want to make today is when we are faced with barriers, with setbacks, we cannot give up. The first thing is the tendency is often to allow that to slow us down and we lose focus and we no longer pay attention to that project, to that dream. We cannot let that happen. When you are faced with a barrier, it is a time for you to flex your muscles. This is when you are going to think outside of the box, do the best that you can be to change the cycle of the problem you are experiencing. You simply cannot let a situation stop you from realizing your dream, right? So have the drive to move forward, no excuses. Si c'est un problème ou gagne, ou joigne une difficulté pendant pas l'école, ou pas passer un examen, ou bien une leçon pas comprendre. You don't want to give up. Give up will not let you win, or give up will not get you to the point where you want to be. You have to stay motivated. So when you find that setback, if you fail an exam, you want to study more, you want to focus, you want to look for ways to really help you understand what's going on. So when something else happens, you know exactly how to resolve it. We don't want to give up because we face a difficult situation. We don't want to give up because we experience a setback. If that was the case, a lot of the people that we know who are now successful will never reach where they are. And if you know anyone who have reached a success level, who have been able to overcome issues and barriers, you know for a fact that if you are a businessman, you always have setbacks, you always have a barrier. There is always un contrariété qui rend nou ke ou pa kapab fè so vle fè a nan mouman, but you cannot give up. Ou pa ka bay fag. Fòk ou rete avèk an pil tenasite, api avèk an pil travay, an pil pensè pou avanse sou chemin ko vle. So, in other words, no matter what the challenge is, you cannot give up. It's not an option for you to give up. You have to keep going to keep yourself motivated. Make decision and change your routine. So a lot of time things happen and we have to think about what happened. So bon situation qui rive kote ke ou te gen on projet ap travay sou li et puis soudainement li rete li pa avanse ankon ou bien un problème ou un contrariété, ça vous fait ou ap identifier ça qui rive hein. L'on fi identifier li ou ap chercher nan ki façon que m'kal chercher solution. If the solution is something you can find by hiring someone or getting somebody else involved to help you, you have to do it, right? A lot of time when we have a barrier, when we have a situation, we may not have the answer for ourselves, but there is always someone there waiting to help us. So the one way you are going to manage a barrier, manage a challenge, pou jere yon kontrarite pou toujou fè suksè, fòk ou gen tenasite, fòk ou gen audacite, nan lang pa nou di audace, nou pense yon moun ki a bay manti ou bien yon moun ki a fè truc. Non, audace vle di nan lang ke se anglais, ke se fransè, lò moun gen audacite pou li avanse, pou li fon bagay, son moun, même lè bon problème devan ki pare très difficile, li pare ki jen pa sot la dan, li premièrement fè tèt li kwe ke la réussi. That's the first thing in overcoming barrier. The mindset. You have to set your mind to a level where you said, you know what? No matter how bad this is, I'm going to make it. Ma réussi quand même. Quelque soit vle ma réussi. Depi ou di tèt ou ke ou ap réussi, ou ap vwe un message positif by tèt ou ki di ke n'importe sak gen ma réussi. Depi ou fin fè ça, c'est comme si m'ta di son kay wap bati et pou fon fondasyon. Fondation, c'est mot positif, c'est mot positif qui parle d'eau, chercher aide, puis vous venez fort avancer puis devant. So, once you are able to look for that help, ou identifier ça qui passe. Pour nous tourner sur le mot audace là, le nous parler de audacity, ou bien audacité en créole, li pa veut dire ou tricher ou bien un bagay négatif. Au contraire, son mot qui veut dire qu'on a pile courage, qu'on a pile tenace, ou vle réussir, et ou pas faire tout ce capable pour arriver dans un point, pour capable porter succès dans la vie, ou bien porter succès dans la vie par l'autre monde. So, think about this word, audacity and tenacity, when you think about facing a barrier. The other thing that you can do and is very important to do when you are facing a challenge is to take the time to think through what's happening in your surrounding. What type of challenges are you personally experiencing or people around you experiencing? If it's an external barrier like what we're experiencing with coronavirus, it is global. It's a global issue now. It is an external barrier that no one saw coming, but it's here. How do you manage that? Well, you all know you have to listen to the guidelines. You have to follow the instructions. You have to take care of yourself and your family. You will manage this external barrier and setback in the most possible way to be able to make it. However, if it is an internal barrier, son barrier qui internal, que ou capable joindre solution pour lui, ou gen plus chance pour capable gérer, contrarier ça, parce que c'est ou même qui pourra mettre step in place pour gérer problème là. One of the issues that we have to make sure that we avoid when we are overcoming a barrier, do not make excuses. Don't make any excuses when you experience a setback. If anything, finding the solution is what you need to do. And once you find a solution, you can focus on that. The moment that we make excuses or we take that as a pretext to stop from doing what we were intended to do, we will never see success. We will never be able to say, I was able to finish a project. No one who is successful in life has done it without an issue. Every successful person you know, every successful person you've seen, at some point in life experience a challenge, experience a barrier. Tout le monde qui a succès